What's going on, everyone? Welcome back into another live edition of the Patriots Beat Podcast here on the CLNS Media Network, presented by our wonderful friends over at Prize Picks. It's Brian Hines back as always with Alex Barth. 8 days away from the start of Patriots training camp. We're almost there. So we were going to kick off with an offensive training camp preview on today's show. We'll do defense later in the week, but we'll run through position by position, look at some X factors at each position, some key questions entering camp, positional battles, and everything in between. But before we jump into that, Barth, we love to talk about jerseys on this show. We get a lot of questions about jerseys. We're getting the Buccaneers jerseys. The Chargers released some new jerseys today. We're still waiting on the Patriots. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think any of the ones that have been released are part of this rival series.
No.
That is when the Patriots are getting jerseys. But what are you thinking about some of these new releases? And we've talked about what we want the Patriots a couple times over the summer, but have they changed your mind, or are you looking forward to anything specific from whenever we get some news about this new Patriots jersey that's coming?
So, first of all, the teams that put them out there today were great. Both the Bucs and the Chargers, no surprises there. In terms of the rivalry thing, I'm starting to wonder, because this is a Nike project, right? This is like, the City Connects or the whatever they call it in the NBA, I forget. But sometimes with the college football jerseys, they don't announce them until in season, like a week or two before they're worn. I'm starting to wonder if this is going to be one of those. Certainly kind of up against it here. I think I would guess they're all going to be announced at once. So I don't know when the first AFC East or NFC West matchups are. But that's just a thought. My prediction now, I was talking to somebody about this today. I have a new prediction for what it's going to be. We kind of talked about this, Brian, the gray version or the silver version of the current road jersey with blue pants and maybe a blue helmet. That's what I'm thinking. So, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's something we don't get until in the season. There's no inside information there. That's just me guessing. But Nike's done that with uniform reveals before. And my guess is this is a more Nike driven thing than it is an NFL driven thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be an interesting way to go about it. Cause again, we haven't heard anything since they announced it and kind of buried the announcement, in the middle of the NFL draft, which was a little weird, but haven't heard anything since. I do think, the Chargers, as always, they did well. The Bucs, the reverse creamsicle was beautiful. I wonder if the Patriots at some point do the away version of the Pat the Patriot red jerseys.
More teams should do road alternates.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think that would be a good jersey to add to the mix, because the Bucs, it's very well done, the reverse creamsicle there. So they were even selling some Tom Brady ones down at the pro shop.
Saw that. Cease and desist.
Might as well. But so we're still waiting for that. Maybe that does come during the season, but we will of course break down that jersey way too much whenever it does come out. So let's jump into this training camp preview. Offense again today. We'll go right down the position list. We'll start with quarterbacks. The big one, Drake May. There is some questions behind him, which we'll get to, but just sticking with Drake May. I mean, this team, you could argue, is going to go with how Drake May takes a year two leap, how he evolves in Josh McDaniel's scheme, how he handles Josh McDaniel's scheme. So, Barth, what are you looking forward to watch Drake May, and especially now that we get to watch, day in, day out. We're there every day. We get to see how he rebounds, things like that. What do you want to see from Drake May in his second training camp?
Yeah, I think we'll know relatively quickly. There's going to be some things we'll talk about during this, and we'll do the defense again tomorrow, and so we'll talk about it then as well. But I know the 98.5 motto is we have a show due today, and that's not to say there will be no takeaways, but there's going to be positions, especially along the line of scrimmage, that we just have to be patient with. We might not get an answer on for a couple of weeks, at least the kind of answers people want. I don't think that's true at quarterback. I think we're going to, maybe not day one, but within the first 3 or 4 days, we're going to kind of know. Drake May made this progress in the spring where he started with that 4 interception practice. And then he got better as the spring went on. And was that just kind of getting in a rhythm? Was that the overall comfort in McDaniel's offense? Right. So I think we'll know relatively quickly either, okay, he's locked in, he's got the offense down, we can start talking about a real year two leap, or on the flip side, this might be a longer process than we thought. And maybe there's a little more work here to do, and maybe that year two leap isn't going to be as big as we thought. So, yeah, I think we'll know relatively quickly with him. But to me, it's the biggest storyline of camp. Like, how much progress has Drake May made in the offseason? And is he really going to go in a year or two hitting the ground rolling?
Yeah, I definitely agree. And it was encouraging, like, after that 4 interception practice to open the spring. Like, and again, we're not there every day in the spring, so it's a little harder to tell. But the rest of the practices we saw, it did seem like he got more and more comfortable pretty quickly, right, as the weeks went. So I thought that was encouraging entering the summer. But turnovers will definitely be a big one after he struggled with that last year. You don't want turnovers, especially 4 turnovers in a practice. So that'll be something, easier to track as things go. But yeah, definitely watching his comfort level. I think that will stand out pretty quickly as things go on. Are you concerned at all with the depth behind him? Because I think last year, once they turned to May, you felt pretty comfortable with Jacoby Brissett as the veteran backup, even if they had to go to Joe Milton in a game, this exciting rookie. And now it's Josh Dobbs and Ben Woldridge. And we did see Drake, in and out of games a few times last year with health issues. So are you confident in really Joshua Dobbs? And we do expect them to keep a third quarterback. So Ben Woldridge, do you like their depth behind Drake May if they have to go to that at some point this season right now?
I think Josh Dobbs is a fine backup. I don't think he's as good a backup as Milton would have been. And it sounds like their plan would have been for Milton to be the third stringer behind Dobbs, which I don't think would have been the right move. I don't think Dobbs a bad backup. I don't think he's going to give you the kind of juice Milton does. The floor is a little higher. The ceiling's much, much lower. So, hopefully we don't have to see Josh Dobbs take any snaps, obviously, unless it's the Brian Hoyer victory cigar snaps, human victory cigar. But I don't think it's bad. Like, if it was just Woolridge, I'd feel a lot worse. I think if you need Josh Dobbs to start you a game or two, he can do that, and the wheels won't totally fall off the wagon. But I don't think he gives you as much upside as Milton did.
Yeah.
What I will say on Dobbs, sorry to cut you off. What I will say on Dobbs is, like, part of the value in this veteran backup thing, and he's only been in the league 5 years, but he's really a veteran backup, is these guys kind of know how to handle their business, and you can kind of let them take care of themselves. And it's not going to be splitting reps like it was last year, obviously, where Jacoby Brissett was the week 1 starter and they had to get him ready for that. But there is something to, like you said, Drake May was in and out of games, and you want to make sure Dobbs is ready, but Josh Dobbs needs to get himself ready. What would the number be for you, like percentage wise, on the number of 1 snaps Drake May should be getting this summer? I'd put it at least 95%. For the average starting quarterback, it's usually around 90. I want him to get a little bit more, just because there's so many new receivers and it's a new offense, and just get used to that. And Dobbs will just have to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say, like, the low end 90%, ideally like 95%. So right there with you on the percentage wise, because you do want him to get acclimated as many snaps as possible in this new offense with all these new pass catchers around him. So you hope, veteran, he's been around, he's been on a bunch of different teams, a short stint with Mike Vrabel, that Dobbs can kind of get himself ready in the background there. But you mentioned human victory cigar. When's the last time the Patriots have even got to do that and bring a backup quarterback in to take a kneel down?
It's been a minute.
It's probably been Hoyer, right? Like 3 or 4 years ago. I don't know. That's been a while.
Who was Mac's backup his rookie year? Was it Hoyer? 2021. Yeah. So then, it would have been probably that Jaguars game, right?
Yeah, those two, and the Jets maybe at the end of that season.
Because I don't think they ever did it with Zappy. No, the wheels fell off at that point. They weren't beating anybody big enough by the time that happened.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's probably that Jaguars game.
There was no Jets game at the end of that year. There was the Jags game. They beat the Dolphins by 7 the next week, and then that was the end of the season.
There you go. So hopefully Josh Dobbs can get some victory kneel downs this year. That would be an encouraging step in the process. But all eyes definitely on Drake May in that quarterback room. But let's transition over to running backs. We have Ramondre Stevenson and Antonio Gibson back leading the top two backs from last year back. They add Travion Henderson with the 38th overall pick in the draft, so he's going to have a big role. And then Land Larison, Terrell Williams, Travion Williams round out that group. I think the big question is just kind of those top three, Ramondre, Henderson, and Gibson. What's the workload like? What's the roles looking like? Like, how much does Travion Henderson eat into those two guys' workload, especially Gibson, because they share pretty similar play styles, right? They can dual threat, they can make plays in the pass game, they can run the ball. So that'll be kind of an interesting split. And then Ramondre, can he bounce back, kind of get back to that 2022 Ramondre with Josh McDaniels' run scheme with an improved offensive line? So those are kind of my two big questions with the top of that depth chart. What else are you, or any thoughts on that? And what else are you looking for in the running back room?
So yeah, how healthy is Stevenson? I think that's a big one. That's an important one, right? With Henderson, we've talked about this. Like, he might not get the most snaps in terms of the overall number, but him being the guy that they go to in those key situations, and obviously a big part of that is red zone and not red zone, 2-minute drill, red zone too, but 2-minute drill, right? And third down. So if you're going to play in those situations, it's not just catching the ball. You have to be able to pass block. And we saw Josh McDaniels in the past would like redshirt running backs for the pass pro responsibilities and make sure they were fully ready there. James White. So Henderson was a good blocker in college. That's a skill that is a little harder to translate. That doesn't mean Henderson's going to be bad. It just means that one, it's not as linked. Like, okay, you were good at this in college, so be good in the pros. But he is coming from a higher baseline. So I think once we get the pads on and they get it in that 2-minute drill, how does Henderson look in pass pro? Because if he's handling his own in pass protection, it opens the door for him playing in more of those key situations early in the year. If he's getting beat, well, now maybe it's going to be a little more Ramondre Stevenson and maybe Antonio Gibson get some of those reps instead. So kind of niche, but I still think important, like Henderson's pass protection.
Definitely. But I'm so excited for him just because they lacked explosiveness in their offense so badly. The big play threat last year, and he definitely brings that. With whether you're handing the ball off to him, in the gun, in the pistol with Drake, or he's throwing him the ball, like he can take anything to the house at any time. So they desperately needed that explosiveness in the backfield. So you hope he can get on the field sooner and early, right out of the gate. It is worth noting he's still unsigned, and we officially have a second-round pick holdout with Trey Harris in Los Angeles. So we're still trying to see what the trickle-down effect is with those second-round picks, and when the line is kind of drawn in the sand for who's getting full guarantees and who's not. But hopefully Travion Henderson is out there to start camp and they figure that out. With the rest of the depth chart, we saw Josh McDaniels run a lot of like two back groups throughout the spring. Land Larison's probably the favorite out of that, Larison, Terrell Jennings, Travion Williams group. Do you think Larison will have a serious, shot to make this roster throughout the summer?
I think he will. I got to see what kind of special teams role they have in mind for him before I really get committed to that take. But he seems like he has the mindset and the physical skills for special teams. McDaniels usually likes to keep 4 running backs. He's a good fit in that he can do a lot. So I think he should have a real shot. But if he's not playing on special teams, that's a red flag.
Yeah, definitely. But you'd assume he'd have some sort of role. They could find some sort of role on special teams for him. But we'll see. All right, I want to jump to tight ends, but we'll kind of go tight ends, fullbacks, and we're just talking about running backs. So let's go fullbacks first. Brock Lampy is still the lone traditional fullback on the roster. He was involved a lot during the spring with that first unit. We also saw a little like Jack Westover, Jaheim Bell, if they want more of that H-back in that role. Do you think they're going to go traditional with Lampy or lean towards one of those Bell, Westover, more athletic type of fullbacks? Because it does seem like Josh McDaniels wants this fullback back, which isn't really that big of a surprise at this point.
Yeah, I can't see Josh McDaniels having an offense that doesn't have that traditional
bruiser,
James Devlin, Jakob Johnson fullback. Right now, do they keep that guy in an H-back instead of a third tight end? Maybe. We'll see kind of how much they integrate that role in the offense. And then, like you said, it helped Jaheim Bell, maybe Jack Westover. But I really think unless they sign another fullback somewhere, Brock Lampy is going to be on the team. Because you need that role in McDaniel's offense. Maybe they realize they could use a defensive lineman or an offensive lineman there, or maybe we get something like Landon Roberts playing fullback, but I just think he's going to want that fullback.
Yeah. Didn't we look up, didn't Kairos Tonga have like 2 or 3 snaps at fullback? They could flip him around there, get that.
Yeah,
big
that's
body
like a
defensive
pure
tackle.
goal line thing, though. I'm talking about, remember they
Yeah.
used to like motion out James
Yeah.
Devlin to the boundary to kind of set protections and stuff. You can't do that with Tonga.
You could. We could get really crazy and have some
You
fun
could, but
with
it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Honestly, if I'm in defense and I see that, I don't know that I'm sending anybody out there.
Yeah, they wouldn't respect Kairos Tonga if he's out there on the boundary. No disrespect to Kairos Tonga. But yeah,
Right.
you did see that. And I think we saw that sometimes in the spray. And like you get out there in kind of this jumbo group, and then they spread everyone out to kind of get their matchup, pick their matchup. You saw that a lot with James Devlin. So the fact that they went out and signed Lampy, that traditional fullback mold, and he was as involved as he was in the spray. And I would imagine that job is his, that fullback spot, unless again they do go out and sign someone else there. But the tight ends, it's Hunter Henry, it's Austin Hooper leading the charge. That is unquestionable, but the group behind them is where the real interest is probably going to be throughout camp, because you have Bell and Westover, the 2 holdovers, and then 2 UDFA signings. CJ Dupree, more of an inline blocker, big 6'5", 250 from Bama, and then G. Scott from Ohio State, a former like highly touted wide receiver recruit. So 2 different skill sets. So we'll see if one of them can separate themselves from each other. But again, kind of a quiet overall spring for that whole group. You'd imagine Dupree could maybe separate himself in preseason action and when the pads come on. But do you think one of these guys could claim tight end 3, or we're going to look at a couple of these guys on the practice squad and we're going to be elevating them on game days?
I mean, I think that the big one is Dupree if they really want that blocking tight end as somebody who can make it. But I think there's a real chance they just keep 2 tight ends initially, like you said, and there it's guys coming from the practice squad.
Yeah, that was my roster projection after minicamp.
Yeah,
I had just Hunter and Hooper on, and then you could elevate, keep guys on practice squad. Do you have any hope left for Jaheim Bell at the tight end spot, or that H-back, fullback, hybrid type of role?
If they want the role, he's probably better fit for that than Westover. I think Westover is more of a traditional tight end. I just don't know if they're going to want that role. So, and it also doesn't help. Like, they clearly want players that have some connection to the staff. And I know he was drafted by Elliott Wolf, but there's not, the connection doesn't run as deep as, maybe a guy like CJ Dupree or even G. Scott, who this front office and this coaching staff picked.
Yeah. And even between him, Bell, and Jack Westover, it seemed, when Hunter Henry,
he was the third guy in that group.
Yeah, like Hunter Henry and Hooper were limited at times during the spring, just, veterans, and most of those opportunities would go to Jack Westover over Jaheim Bell. So it seems like he definitely has some work to do to climb that depth chart if he wants to stick around there. But all right, before we get to the last 2 good ones, wide receiver, offensive line, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at Prize Picks very quickly. And do you know ball? Because football season is right around the corner, and we're going to get to put some Patriots picks in our Prize Picks lineup. Baseball is on the All-Star break, but they will be right back as well. And all on Prize Picks is the best place to cash in on your favorite sports. Just pick more or less on player stats like hits, home runs, strikeouts, and more this summer for your shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash today, and even take advantage of their weekly promotions that can link to big payouts. Like tonight is Taco Tuesday, each Tuesday, where projections can be discounted from 15 to 25%. I'm going to keep rolling with Roman Anthony, throw Marcelo Meyer in there. You can finish off the trio and even go Romy Gonzalez. Those 3, more than half a hit, more than 1.5 total bases, RBIs, anything. Those 3 guys are rolling. So put them in your Prize Picks lineup when the Red Sox return from the All-Star break. And you can download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup, all over on Prize Picks. Run your game. I believe they also have some MLB All-Star Game stuff if you want to run over tonight and take advantage of Taco Tuesday. Make sure to do that. Again, code CLNS on Prize Picks, $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. All right. 2 left position groups left. Wide receiver, we'll start there before we get to the offensive line. Some new bodies: Stephon Diggs, Kyle Williams, Mac Hollins joining most of the group from last year. Efton Chisholm in the new addition group. A lot going on in this room. We unfortunately didn't get the look at the whole group during the spring because Diggs is rehabbing. Mac Hollins was injured. Jalen Polk was limited. So hopefully we get a full picture as people get healthier in training camp. But Barth, just off the top, what's the number one thing in this wide receiver room you're looking forward to in training camp?
Diggs, just seeing where Stephon Diggs is at, right? We kind of left off in the spring. Hey, he looks really good. Week 1 does feel like it's a possibility. He is still limited, so he's not there 100%, but we'll see where he's at in 2 months. Well, here we are. It's 2 months later. Is he going to be ready for week 1? How does he look physically? How does he look picking up the playbook? Where's his chemistry with Drake May? Like Diggs being a factor is such a game changer for this team. This is overall one of my biggest storylines in camp is what we're going to see out of Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, because I think he left the spring saying he looks like he could play week 1. Like he looks like he's trending that way. So now, we haven't seen him in almost 2 months. So seeing what he looks like out there from a health wise, and if he could just be a number one option and get back, he was on pace in Houston last year, 100 catches, 1,000 yards. If he can be if he can be a difference maker, like that's going to let everyone else kind of slot in very nicely in this room. You don't have to rely on, Kyle Williams to be a difference maker for you. His rookie year, you can kind of ease him into some of these things. And that just kind of makes this hierarchy in your wide receiver room, again, fall into place a little bit better. So his health, where's he at mentally, checking in on everything, that'll be the number one story in that wide receiver room. Do you have any other locks in that? Who else are you locking into the roster?
So yeah,
my draft pick, but who else are you locking in the wide receiver room?
Kyle Williams, Diggs, assuming, and this is not including guys potentially opening on PUP because 2 of these guys could. Kyle Williams, Diggs, Pop Douglas, and I do think Mac Hollins is a lock. They paid him just enough, and his experience with McDaniels, his ability on special teams, the fact that if they don't keep him, that wide receiver room is insanely small. Maybe he opens on PUP, right? He couldn't even get in uniform in the spring, so I'm not ruling that out. But I don't think he's getting cut. He's going to be here one way or the other.
I'm with you with that, and not only that stuff, like he had his best year under Josh McDaniels too, but
yeah.
Everyone in that room sounds like they look to him as a leader, and they say they show his cut ups in the film room from when he was with Buffalo last year in Vegas with McDaniels. And we know they needed some adults in that room after last year, so they went out and added him. I see them keeping Mac Hollins you hope he's healthy after he missed the spring, but I'm with you with those kind of 4 locks. So that leaves really 5 guys battling for 1 or 2 spots, depending, who's healthy. Is Diggs on PUP? And that's Kendrick Bourne, who had a great year under Josh McDaniels in 21. Kayshon Boutte, who was one of their best receivers last year. And then the sophomores and Jalen Polk, Javon Baker, and then UDFA, spring star, Efton Chisholm. I think we both had 7 on our roster projection, and we were with the same ones, but
yeah,
I think we both had Bourne and Chisholm, if I'm remembering correctly, and we
both had last year's draft picks off. Well, I had Polk on PUP, but
okay, yeah. we both had. I know we both had Polk and Baker off. I think we might have had Boutte. We kept a lot of wide receivers.
No, because after seven with those 2, unless you kept John Giles, it has to be the same.
I did not keep John Giles, so it's 7. 1, 2, 3.
Because the 4 locks we talked about: Boutte,
okay,
Bourne, and Chisholm. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we both kept 7. Are you still there, or you trending maybe a little bit differently entering the summer now?
So I said this at the time. This 7 was kind of a placeholder. It was, I don't think any of these guys get cut, but one's probably going to get traded, or Chisholm's just going to fall off when the pads come on. Yeah, I'm still there. There are 7 NFL caliber receivers we know in this room, and that's not including the 2 draft picks from last year, who may or may not be NFL caliber players, but could be. The door's still open for that. So
yeah, I'm still not ruling out maybe a trade in that room, right? Like you look at Kendrick Bourne, you look at Kayshon Boutte. Boutte repped as, and both of them repped with the top offense a lot in the summer. And again, there were guys injured, so take that
Right.
for
That
what
was
it's worth.
without Diggs.
Yeah, but you look at if Diggs comes back and he looks really healthy, and you have Mac Hollins and Kyle Williams who can rotate from the Z and the X. Like, does that make Kendrick Bourne expandable to some team? Or if they feel really good with Kyle Williams at the X, which we saw him do his fair share at the spring, like, does that make Kayshon Boutte expandable for a team? And someone might look at him still as a young receiver who had 500-600 yards last year, and maybe they get draft capital for them. So I'm not ruling out a trade in that group right now, but I'm still with you with the 7 Polk Baker on the outside. Just need to see Polk healthy first, and just what kind of impact he can make once he is out there. Courtney in the chat says dark horse Javon Baker comes back, explosives, and causes quite the stir. I'm not there with you yet, Courtney. I'm just not counting or relying on Javon Baker at this point.
Here's the thing about where Javon Baker is. He really wasn't even repping with the runs in the spring. He has to be good enough, early enough, that he can earn first team reps, and then with those first team reps, earn a roster spot. You can't, if you're tearing it up with the third team, you're not going to make the roster. Even if you're tearing it up, because at a certain point, you got to prove you can hang with the big boys, right? So he first needs to earn the first team reps back. And then he's going to have if he does that, he's going to have a truncated period with the first team to prove he deserves a roster spot. I'm not saying it's impossible, but he has a long uphill battle ahead of him.
It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for him. So, but yeah, I'm still with you with the 7. Diggs is the big one to watch in that group. But then the bottom of that depth chart, again, a lot of bodies for maybe 1 or 2 spots. Yeah. So we'll see how that shakes out throughout the summer. So we'll wrap up with the offensive line. We can split it up, go tackles and then interior. So let's start with
tackles. I give one offensive line take off the top?
Go for it. Rip it.
This is the position where I'm really going to piss people off, because whatever happens the first 4 days in non-pads, I don't want to say I don't care, but I really don't care. Will Campbell could come out and get his ass beat by Keon White every snap. He could come out and stonewall Keon White every snap. I'm really not going to look a ton into it. What I'll look into for the first few days is, one, just the usage, right? So, okay, who's getting the majority of the reps at left guard? Who's getting the majority of reps at center? Like, that's relevant. And then assignment stuff, right? So, okay, like, if there's a sack because Cole Strange gets beat on a really good swim move, right? He gets overpowered on a bull rush. I don't really care, because, again, it's not full pads. It's not real football. If Cole Strange allows a sack because he blocks in and the center blocks in and the tackle blocks out and somebody blew their assignment and there's a free rusher, like, that I'll care about a little bit more. But I don't really we'll look at where the guys stand. We'll look at the depth chart in the non-padded practices. Again, Will Campbell could get beat every rep. He could win every single rep the first 4 days. It's not really going to hold any weight with me, right? It's not and I'm a Will Campbell guy. If he's awesome the first 4 days and the pads come on and he starts to suck, you're not going to hear me here saying, well, he was really good the last few days. And no, like and Vrabel said as much back in June. It's when the pads come on. That's when we're evaluating the linemen. So that's going to bug some people, I know, because you're going to want definitive answers, and it's going to sound like I'm covering for guys or blasting guys when I shouldn't be or whatever. Like, I'm telling you that right now, so when I do it, it's consistent. I'm not putting weight for the line on the non-padded practices. I'm not, for the most part. Again, that assignment stuff, if it's clear somebody blew an assignment, we can talk about that, and obviously the usage. I got to see them actually block to truly form an opinion.
No, you're right. Like, you have to wait till the pads come on, because you even hear them and the defensive line talking in the spring. Like, there's only so much they can do when there's not pads, and like, they know it's a passing camp almost in a way, right? So that helps with the offensive line. Like, they know these guys are rushing, but the defensive line also can't use their full bag of tricks. Like, they can't bull rush when they're not wearing pads. Right. It was all speed moves and quick moves. So it's not a fair fight. So judging the performance in those non-padded practices is always tough unless like one guy just keeps getting blown by completely. Like you don't want to look too much into that, but as you said, the assignment stuff, where guys are aligning, especially on the interior, which we'll get to in a minute, like that stuff definitely we'll talk about. We'll let you guys know what's going on there. But with those tackles, it is Will Campbell. It's going to be Morgan Moses left and right. Feel much better about that than you did at any point in training camp last year, I would assume. But Will Campbell is definitely, I mean, he's a rookie. Just throwing him right out there at left tackle. Drake May's blindside. Like, how is he going to react when the pads come on in games? That's still a big question mark. Does the arms, like, here we go back with Will Campbell's arms. Does those make a factor? Bring those back in. And then the depth behind those guys, too. You know, you have Darian Lowe, Caden Wallace, a third-round pick last year. You draft Marcus Bryant late this year. You sign Yasir Durant. Demontre Jacobs is back. Like, there's going to be some good competition for one or two or swing tackle behind Campbell and Moses as well there.
Yeah, I mean, to your point about how far we've come, remember what we were doing with the offensive line and specifically the tackles at this time last year? Well, okay, so they signed Chuks Okorafor, who was a left tackle who was a right tackle in Pittsburgh, but they want to make Michael Leonard the right tackle because they paid him. So Chuks will play on the left side, but that might not work because he's never played over there. So they could put Vidarian Lowe there because he has to play there because he can't play on the right side. But also they used a third-round pick on Caden Wallace, who's a right tackle, but they want to try him at left. And that whole time, the guy who ultimately started at right tackle was on the Denver Broncos in Demontre Jacobs. So
who joined the team like 10 days before week 1 off of waiver claims.
So there's still questions, like even arm length aside, Will Campbell is a rookie. There's inherent questions that come with a rookie at any position, you know, first round pick, 7th round pick. Can you make the adjustment? Morgan Moses, still like the signing. He's 35 years old. When you play that long, there's inherent questions. Not everybody's Tom Brady, right? Not everybody beats Father Time like that. Can those guys still be solid? Yeah. But it's not as much of a lock as usual. But we can tell you who the 2 starting tackles are and discuss what they're going to do, rather than, again, Charlie Kelly in front of Pepe Sylvia trying to put all a string together.
Yeah, it is nice. I remember last year, we probably said this multiple times, but they'd get out there, they would stretch, they would do their warm up, and then they would break off, and you know, Drake or Jacoby would take snaps behind just the starting offensive line. And that's where everyone would look to be like, what's the rotation? What's the lineup today? I would say going into next week and week 1 of training camp, you know, 80% of what the offensive line should be. That left guard spot is still a little bit of a question mark, but it will be nice.
I think center's more open than people think, but it's a 2-man. It's can the rookie catch the veteran? It's very cut and dry. It's not this wide open competition.
Yeah, like it's going to be Garrett Bradbury out of the gate, especially after Jared Wilson spent the spring limited. But it's, as you said, it's a clear-cut competition. You're not mixing and matching and changing positions and a bunch of bodies like you were last year. So you definitely feel better with Will Campbell and Morgan Moses at that spot. Speaking of just, you know, last year and flipping all those guys around, I don't remember the exact date, but we kept saying like we had a date in mind that'd be like, at this point we should have the starting offensive line and stick with it. And I think Mayo even had a date that he pushed back a couple times. Is there a point in, you know, this kind of transitions into that big left guard competition and maybe even center, that you would like them to have their starting 5 and just say, okay, like this is it. We are rolling with this, whether it's, you know, that Minnesota joint practice, which is after the Commanders joint practice, or just, you know, the second and third preseason game or the second week of padded practice even. Like, is there a point in time when you're like, okay, I want this 5 and I just want to roll with this 5 unless something not catastrophic, but if something severe happens enough where we have to change?
Yeah, I think it was going into the second preseason game last year. Like, see them in that second preseason game. If you need to make any adjustments after that based on what you see, you can, but you want to more or less know, okay, this is the group, or we need to make a small tinker here or there at that point.
Yeah. Because I think, was the second preseason game the Commanders last year, or was that the final one? Just trying to remember.
Commanders was the final one.
Okay. Because that was the one you felt a little comfortable. Then City So got hurt. tore up his ankle, and then it was just a mess after that. So yeah, maybe that second preseason game, or that they have a joint practice before that, if they could get 5 at that point, you feel comfortable with, you would take that. So that left guard spot is the big one. We mentioned, Bradbury, Jared Wilson at center, but that left guard spot still feels wide open. The one spot that could be won by a number of bodies. Cole Strange does feel like the front runner. Are you thinking this is going to end with Cole Strange, or could you see City So or Layden Robinson, who looked kind of buried on the depth chart in the spring, or Tyrese Robinson, or UDFA Jack Conley, or maybe even Caden Wallace? We saw him get some snaps at guard late in the spring. Could you see someone else really pushing for that starting left guard spot and taking that from Cole Strange?
Yeah, I think there's a couple guys. You mentioned Caden Wallace, City So, does Tyrese Robinson get into the mix? The one guy I don't love putting there is Jared Wilson. I just think if he's good enough to start him at center. Let him develop there. But I like City So. I just think he's the best fit for McDaniel's offense. Surprised Layden Robinson didn't get more run in the spring than he did. But I don't, it feels really wide open. I don't, I can't say with conviction who I think it's going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause even with Cole in there, like if you have Cole and Garrett Bradbury, like that's a smaller interior, like next to Will Campbell, who, we've talked so much about his size. And then, so if you get City or even Caden Wallace or Jack Conley, like those are bigger bodies that can play downhill, get a little bit more power. So I'm not rolling out one of those guys to push, but I would imagine Cole Strange does open next week at that left guard spot and has his fair share to kind of win, which we haven't seen a healthy Cole Strange in the summer for the last 2 years. So he'll be healthy. Hopefully that could make a difference for him as well in that competition at left guard there. But anything else with those reserves, even at tackle or guard, just any names you're kind of watching to maybe make a push for a depth roster spot along that offensive line?
Jack Conley, they were giving him a ton of reps in the spring, and he was kind of repping everywhere. I think they like him. I don't know that he ultimately lands a starting job, but he seems like a guy that they're going to give a real chance to earn a roster spot.
Yeah, the versatility definitely helps. So, and the size, big boy. So he'll definitely have a chance to maybe earn a spot there. So that's the offensive line. I believe that's all the positions. Anything else? Any other just offensive things in general you're looking forward to? Coaches, scheme wise, anything else all on the offense there?
No, I think that's it.
All right, we can wrap up then. We'll be back later this week.
I'll add this. Sorry, Brian. I saw somebody ask, because we were talking about this before. We worked a couple other. We talked about a couple players being special teams guys, and somebody asked how many special teams folks are they going to have so far, 2+ from offense. So some of these guys, Mac Hollins, Lan Larison, they're going to play a depth role on offense as well as special teams. The other important thing to remember, between you have kickoff return, onside kick, onside return, punt return, punt heavy return, field goal block. Those are your core special teams unit. That's 110 spots you have to fill. And obviously there's going to be overlap there, right? But you can't, if you want to complain the Patriots used to keep too many core special teams guys, fine. Then you need guys who are going to be able to primarily focus on special teams. Guys at the top of the depth chart can't do that. So if you're keeping guys a 5th wide receiver or 4th running back, especially like a 4th running back, at a position where you're going to need depth at some point in the season, it's generally a position where the body type and the athleticism fits with special teams. And we'll get to this tomorrow on defense with corners and safeties, right? Like, you're not, when we say that, like, Mac Hollins has that special teams ability, that doesn't mean he's only going to play special teams. It doesn't mean he's going to be Matthew Slater. But you want a couple guys who have a knack for that and are good at that. And if they're buried on the depth chart, so be it, but they're going to contribute. So, because again, you got to fill 110 spots, and Bill used to talk about this, and then all 110 of those players need backups.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of spots to fill. And if you have guys that are talented on special teams that you can kind of make the cornerstones of that, again, it doesn't have to be Matthew Slater. Think Brandon Bolden, right? Who mainly played special teams, but would chip in on offense when needed. You want to have some players that can do that.
Yeah, definitely. And as you said, like that's a lot of corners, safeties, those guys. You know, you look at the Boldens and Marcellus Dials of the world, Del Pettis. You saw last year, like chipped in the safety room, but was the personal protector and had a big role in special teams. But definitely some on offense, even with the new kickoff. You know, you saw more tight ends. Like Jaheim Bell played a lot of special teams last year. Does that factor into that third tight end, or does Brock? Or are they comfortable with Brock Lampy or Lan Larison? Like. So that definitely helps with the bottom of the roster guys to push their way on to the roster in special teams. But we'll break down more of that as well with the whole defense and the rest of the special teams later this week or tomorrow. We'll keep you updated. So make sure you're locked on to Patriots Press Pass on YouTube. Make sure you like and subscribe, turn on those notifications so you do know when we go live or any other content is posted. Tons of stuff coming to you guys from everyone, not even beyond us in training camp. So make sure, again, you like, subscribe on Patriots Press Pass, subscribe wherever else you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple, anywhere else, and turn on those notifications on YouTube as well. We really appreciate that. You can also follow Barth on Twitter at RealAlexBarth. Head over to 985thesportshub.com for Patriots training camp previews up there. And you can follow me on Twitter at I am Brian Hines and head over to patspulpit.com. We are breaking down position by position as well this week over there as well. So again, thanks everyone for jumping on with us tonight. And we'll be back later this week to talk defense and special teams ahead of training camp.